Tonight, hurricane-force winds are fanning the flames as California burns.
If there's more to be seen, then we need to see it.
In Washington, Democrats are demanding more after a witness allegation of missing pieces in that Ukraine phone call transcript. And
not once, as God is my witness, not once was a Biden name, not the former vice president, not his son, ever mentioned.
A new report is calling into question Energy Secretary Rick Perry's assertion on CBN News. Meanwhile,
we could die at any time here from airstrikes.
The situation in Syria under a supposed ceasefire is as dire as ever for Kurdish Christians fearing airstrikes and artillery fire.
All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
California burning and a national landmark at stake. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm Eric Phillips, in tonight for John Jessup. We begin with wildfires burning across California with powerful winds blazing through tens of thousands of acres and plunging hundreds and thousands into darkness. Northwest of Los Angeles, brush fires are bearing down on the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. The Easy Fire in Simi Valley and the Reagan Library doorstep is the latest in a slew of blazes to erupt in the Golden State as firefighters battle to tamp down the flames. In L.A. and Sonoma County, the Weather Service is issuing the first ever extreme red flag warning.
Here in Washington, the impeachment inquiry heads to the House floor. Tomorrow, the House will vote to authorize it as more witnesses are called to testify. One thing these witnesses have all made very clear is they are not the anonymous whistleblower. CBN News White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us with the latest. Ben?
Well, Jenna, witnesses continue to defy White House orders not to talk, and that includes the two State Department officials taking the hot seat today. Morning. Catherine Croft and Christopher Anderson, two career Foreign Service officers, are expected to testify. Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney put a hold on military aid to Ukraine, reportedly at President Trump's request.
How was your day, sir?
Their testimony follows Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vidman, a top official with the National Security Council, who listened in on that now infamous phone call. Behind closed doors, he expressed concern about the July 25th call with Ukraine. The New York Times reports Vidman said words and phrases were even omitted from the call transcript provided by the White House.
It certainly concerns me if the White House has released an incomplete transcript. It's damning enough on its face. I can't really imagine what could be a lot worse than the president's demand that the president of Ukraine investigate his political rivals in exchange for defensive support for Ukraine. But if there's more to be seen, then we need to see it.
Among the alleged omissions, according to Vidman, is a direct mention by Ukraine's president of Burisma, the company which had business dealings with Hunter Biden. But the president has pushed back on that claim.
The transcript of the actual call, word for word.
Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi plans to move forward with the first formal vote tomorrow. It would outline next steps, including procedures for open hearings.
They're going forward with one, which is something the president and others have insisted on. It's going to happen. And secondly, the process is going to be open.
Now, Republicans say at this point they plan to vote no on Thursday, insisting the process up until this point is a sham. Eric, Jenna?
All right, Ben, thank you very much. CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robinson joins us now from the halls of Congress. And Abigail, you just spoke with Senator Lindsey Graham, one of the president's staunchest allies, and he's introduced a resolution condemning the impeachment inquiry. What can you tell us about that?
That's true. Senator Graham is sticking with the president, and he's been outspoken against the impeachment inquiry since the beginning. And this resolution is criticizing the Democrats for what he says is their lack of transparency, the closed door hearings, what he just says has been mishandling since the beginning. And he believes that this might have lasting implications. Take a look.
Forget about Trump for a moment. If the House in the future can have closed-door hearings where the president's lawyers can't participate, you selectively leak information out to the public to drive the numbers of the president down, you can literally destroy the presidency. The reason they're not doing it like they did before is because they don't have a case.
And he went on to tell me that he believes that this impeachment inquiry is completely driven by hatred of President Trump.
I've looked at the transcript. I'm okay with the phone call. The president did nothing wrong, and the things he claims to be omitted don't matter one bit to me. So he has a right to his opinion, but I have a right to my opinion. I made my mind up. There's nothing wrong with this phone call, and the changes he suggests make no difference to me.
That was actually a bite about yesterday's testimony, which claimed that there were parts from a witness who apparently witnessed the phone call between President Trump and the president of Ukraine, that there might have been parts of that phone call that were omitted, that we heard earlier in Ben's piece, that is very concerning to some Democrats. But Lindsey Graham told me today that he believes even with those pieces that were omitted added back in, it doesn't make a difference to him. He thinks that there is still no wrongdoing from President Trump.
I think that will be quickly disposed of unless there's something new and bombshell I've never heard of. This will not last very long in the Senate. It's a waste of our time. It divides the country. The Ukraine got the money. The president of the Ukraine said there was no quid pro quo. At the time of the phone call, the president of the Ukraine didn't even know the aid was suspended.
And what you just heard is Senator Graham telling me what he believes that will happen when this goes to the Senate. He thinks it will die in the Senate unless there is a major bombshell that comes out. But he thinks from what he's seen thus far that there's no case here.
All right, Abigail Robertson on the Hill, thank you very much. Well, Ben LaFave is a reporter at Politico, and he joins us now for more. Ben, good to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is a big week for impeachment. How do you see all of this playing out, Ben?
I think that it's going to be, we're going to see the Democrats try to do what the Republicans have been asking them to do with this vote tomorrow. And whether Republicans will think it's enough to kind of ease their worries about how the process is going, we'll see in the comments after, the vote.
You just heard Senator Lindsey Graham talking about Vindman's testimony. How damaging do you think that is in the grand scope of things?
I think it's another, brick in the pile of, credible testimony, or at least testimony the Democrats are going to point to as being very credible in painting a picture of how this administration has been using, its diplomatic corps, official and unofficial, to, kind of push the Ukrainian government to, pursue Trump's political agenda. So with the testimony yesterday, we saw, after Ambassador Bill Taylor, after EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland and Fiona Hill, not all the testimony is gelling, and I think we're starting to see the Democrats picking some folks to say we're getting a clearer picture from some of these, career officials than we've been getting from some of the political picks out of the White House.
You say Vindman's testimony also calls into question Energy Secretary Rick Perry's comments about Ukraine, and you reference an interview that the Secretary did with CBN News. We have a clip of that. We want to play that, and then we'll talk about it.
Not once, as God is my witness, not once was a Biden name, not the former vice president, not his son, ever mentioned. Corruption was talked about in the country, but it was always a relatively vague term of, the oligarchs and this and that and what have you. But I'm quite comfortable. I mean, matter of fact, I'm extremely comfortable that not did the President of the United States or any of his administration or his team ever talk about and with the intent of there was some quid pro quo.
Ben, what did Vindman say to contradict Secretary Perry?
What Vindman said was that Gordon Sondland and others in that White House meeting on July 10th had been discussing the administration's push to have the Ukrainian officials investigate Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, the ongoing, Biden's, involvement with the Burisma Natural Gas Company in that meeting. Now, other witnesses had put Perry in that meeting where this was being discussed. So when Perry was saying earlier that, he had never heard the word Burisma brought up or the Bidens brought up, his being at that meeting, unless he was, zoning out or playing with his phone, he was, involved in that conversation.
Which is altogether possible. But you say that, Secretary Perry was at least present During that conversation where Vindman voiced his concerns about the request to investigate the Bidens, how significant is that?
It's pretty significant. Perry so far has been a little bit of a minor player in all of this. He's been mentioned as being an unofficial, or part of the unofficial channel to the Ukraine that the White House had set up. But Perry, who's supposed to be stepping down from the administration December 1st, may have been able to kind of leave town quietly. But as he becomes more enmeshed in these accounts of, the discussion about the Bidens with the Ukraine officials, I think Democrats are going to strengthen their calls for him to have to testify or to comply with subpoenas that they had already issued.
All right, Ben Lefebvre with Politico. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Well, the situation in Syria is as dire as ever, even amid a supposed ceasefire in the region. Russian troops are now seen patrolling the streets of some of the cities in northern Syria. But while the U.S. has pulled back from the region, some American aid workers have gone in to help with the crisis. Chuck Holton has the story.
While the American withdrawal led to greater Russian and Turkish influence in Syria, aid workers on the ground say there is no ceasefire. Retired Marine Captain Brandon Wheeler has spent years getting to know the players in this region. He says the U.S. gave up a huge opportunity in northern Syria.
The fascism of Islamic fascism and the totalitarianism of Russia and Assad, those things are not going to be better ideas to freedom and self-government. It just won't work. So if you had played it out, and if we had done what we did post-World War II and built this place up, everybody in the area would want to be here. It'd be the most prosperous, successful place in the whole region. All of that may be lost.
Now the other players are rushing in to fill the power vacuum left by the U.S. exit.
What I can tell you for sure is whether it's Putin or Assad or the Salafi Islamists or Turkey, the one thing they can all agree on is that self-governance, individual freedom is a threat to all of them. So they will exterminate this project at all costs.
Dave Eubank has been leading a small team of medics in northern Syria since mid-October, and he believes the U.S. still has a role to play.
This was an emergent, small democracy of a mixed ethnic religious group that got along with each other. But they needed us in the middle to help hold that together and to keep ISIS down. These people fought and defeated ISIS here, but to keep them from rising again, the U.S. needs to stay. Also, to stop Assad and his dictatorship to taking over this whole country.
Despite the supposed ceasefire, Turkish-backed forces are still killing Kurds in this area.
Imagine what it would be like if every time you heard an airplane go overhead, you had to worry about your car or your house vaporizing. That's what the people here in northern Syria are worried about now because of the ever-present threat of Turkish drones flying overhead. And it's changing the way they live. So, for example, we park our car underneath the trees if we need to because we try not to be too visible from the air.
This Kurdish soldier says he hopes the world will understand that they're fighting not just for themselves.
We could die at any time here from airstrike, from a drone, from artillery. But the most important thing for us is that the world sees that we are standing up against this tyranny from Erdogan.
For these men, the U.S. involvement here is important not just for the Kurds, but for America as well.
The U.S. cannot solve the problems of Syria or anywhere else, but right here, we create a space where the Kurds and the Arabs, the Christians and the Yazidis and others can work something out, and they were. There's no guarantee it'll work, but guaranteed it will fail if you leave.
A threat to freedom anywhere is a threat to freedom everywhere. And if you can't secure freedom here, you will be sure that people who want to kill Americans, who have killed Americans, will come here in order to man, train, equip, and prepare for the next war, because they are committed.
From northern Syria, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
And we will have much more on the situation in Syria. Stay right here. Our panel of experts will break it all down on the other side of the break. You're watching Faith Nation.
To have sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
And welcome back. Here with us now is Bassam Ishaq, the U.S. representative for the Syrian Democratic Council. Bassam, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
What are the immediate concerns that you see there for the people on the ground in Syria?
Well, the immediate concern is in northeast Syria and is in a town called Tel Tamer. Tel Tamer in the northeast of Syria is a town that has historically been, had a large Assyrian presence. And the Assyrians who occupies that city and the land around it, the agricultural land, originally actually came from southeast Turkey. But because of the massacres there in 1915, they fled to northern Iraq. Then there was a massacre against them in northern Iraq, so they fled in the 1930s to this town and built 33 villages along this town and churches, and were living peacefully till ISIS in 2016 attacked their villages. Now ISIS is defeated, but we have the similar to ISIS, the same mindset as ISIS, those pro-Turkey jihadis who are coming in now threatening their town. They are about few kilometers, 5-6 kilometers away from their towns. They are coming with heavy artillery and with coverage from the air by the Turkish forces. And they have no air coverage, those locals who are trying to fight off the attack. So their city could fall anytime. We need the U.S. to step in. We all know, and we thank Vice President Pence for going to Turkey for, negotiating an agreement, ceasefire agreement, which is not being implemented now. So we want pressure on Turkey to stop this unwarranted attack on this Christian town, Tel Tamer.
Well, speaking to the Christians, what happened to the Christians in Ras Al Ain?
Okay, so in Ras Al Ain also there is a substantial Christian presence. They own land there. About 1/3 of the land property there is owned by Assyrian, Syriac, Armenian Christians. And there is the cotton season now to collect the cotton. So they haven't been harmed. They were told by the pro-Turkey rebels that they have orders not to kill the Christians, but you have no land here anymore, they were told. So they're not able to go and collect their harvest. And what this amounts to is really soft ethnic cleansing. Because if you lose your source of income, you lose your land, you leave. And so this is what the pro-Turkey rebels are extremists, jihadis are doing.
Well, Bassam Ishaq, we have to leave it there. But thank you so much for stopping by today and sharing your insights with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, a new poll reveals that a majority of Americans, especially millennials, want to rewrite the First Amendment. Still ahead on Faith Nation.
On the Home Front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
On the Home Front, Tuesday morning at 10:30.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government.
My focus has been trying to really make sure we have the future leaders we need for the bench and the bar and for society generally.
You'll learn from highly credentialed leaders who are current and former judges, distinguished scholars, and ACLJ counsel.
I'm so glad I chose Regent. The relationships here have been amazing. The faculty have been amazing. Not everybody's called to the same thing when they leave law school, but they're called by a God who has a purpose for their lives, and He is going to use that education to make a difference in the world.
Regent will prepare you to be a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer. To start your rewarding law career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July. Apply today.
Welcome back. Well, a new poll just out indicates a majority of Americans think the First Amendment is outdated and leaves too much room for hate speech. In fact, 51% of Americans think the First Amendment should be rewritten. Nearly 60% agree with the government and that it should be able to take action against media that publish content that is biased, inflammatory, or false. 25% think jail time is a suitable punishment for hate speech. The survey was done by the Campaign for Free Speech and its executive director, Bob Lystad, who joins us now to break it all down. Bob, good to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me, Jenna and Eric.
Just looking at these results in general, are they more of a cause for concern or a call to action, or both?
Both. The cause for concern you can see both in the courts, in Congress, and even from the White House. The White House has drafted an executive order that would restrict certain speech or certain activity by Facebook and Twitter. Congress, there's some legislation that has been introduced that would have the government regulate Facebook, Twitter, and other social media sites. We don't want the government to regulate private speech. And I'm guessing that the FCC and the FTC commissioners have no desire to regulate speech that Facebook and Twitter have every right either to publish, allowed to be published, or not allowed to be published. They're private enterprises.
I would probably hedge my bets that you're right on that one in terms of their willingness or desire to have that happen.
Right.
But when you look at your survey, millennials are very passionate about the idea of controlling hate speech. That's kind of the whole premise of it. So why do you think that particular group is so passionate about it?
I think they've grown up in a different generation, and you know, you can certainly see why regulating hate speech would be good, because we don't like hate speech. Hate speech can be demeaning, it's disgusting, and it can cause real harm, both mental harm, and there's even empirical data that it can cause physical harm. Why millennials more than older generations? I'm not sure. You know, I grew up in the generation of sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, I think there actually is more data that words do hurt. But, again, we don't want the government to be determining what kind of speech may or may not be uttered.
It's that gentle balance.
Yeah, you know, when the forefathers, when they wrote the Constitution, you know, of course, they couldn't anticipate social media, instant messages, you know, podcasts, everything that we have today. Sure. Does the First Amendment need to be updated?
In my humble opinion, no. And I've been working with the First Amendment as a media lawyer and as working for a company that insures media and entertainment companies. The First Amendment is very broad in its protections and should be. So my humble opinion, we should not be rewriting the First Amendment, because if you do, what's the first thing that's going to be done? They're going to start putting restrictions on speech. And we don't want restrictions on speech. Everybody should be able to say what they want to say, even if it's racist and demeaning, But there are consequences for that kind of speech. There are societal consequences. But we don't want to be throwing people in jail for certain things. There was just a law introduced in the state of Massachusetts that would prohibit the use of the B word that rhymes with witch. Okay, you know what happens if you prohibit or throw people in jail, as this legislation would? The entire cast of the TV show Friends goes to jail. Joey, Ross, Phoebe, Monica, they're all going to jail.
Yeah, well, we have to leave it there, but thank you so much. Great insights.
Jenna, Eric, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Coming up, as the Washington Nationals head to a historic Game 7 in the World Series, the Washington Cathedral is seeing red.
If you want to be an attorney with a passion for serving people and for excellence, Regent University needs to be high on your list.
Regent's award-winning law school doesn't just create lawyers. We create leaders, judges, prosecutors and defense lawyers, civil litigators, and leaders in government. Ready to become a purpose-driven, practice-ready lawyer? To start your rewarding career, complete the online application, submit your transcripts, and take the law school admissions test by July.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. Whoa! It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
The Millsburg Falls man coming.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Tonight, the Washington Nationals take on the Houston Astros in Game 7 of the World Series.
So for at least one more night, the Washington National Cathedral is officially changing its name to the Washington Nationals Cathedral. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. We're looking for them to bring home the W. Have a great one.